Just as a disclaimer, we want you to know that some of the movies that we will be reviewing were shot in a different time and era where people of race and sex were not treated equally. We understand this and hope you do too. The movies or anything that happened on the sets are not the views of this podcast or what this show is intended to be all about.
Exactly. And we want to give due diligence in presenting the movie and not the views of the cast or directors or anyone involved. But we also feel it's necessary to let the audience know some of the background information to get a feel for what was happening at the time of shooting the film. Again, we hope you understand that we do not agree with everything that went on, and we just want to give out the information. And with that being said, hope you enjoy the show.
There is a podcast that lies between the imagination of two simple-minded earthlings. Travel with these two longtime friends, Jimbo and 80s E, as they attempt to explore the fifth dimension. Follow along with them as they take the key and unlock the door to the vast space between shadow and substance. This podcast is one of trivia, of insight, and of sounds and ideas from one of the greatest television shows ever produced. You are embarking on a timeless journey. There is your signpost up ahead. You are entering the tragedy of cinema's Twilight Zone.
In this corner of the universe, a prizefighter named Boldy Jackson, 183 pounds and an hour and a half away from a comeback at St. Nick's Arena. Mr. Boldy Jackson, who by the standards of his profession is an aging, over-the-hill relic of what was, and who now sees a reflection of a man who has left too many pieces of his youth in too many stadiums for too many years, before too many screaming people. Mr. Boldy Jackson, who might do well to look for some gentle magic in the hard-surfaced glass that stares back at him.
All right, guys, welcome back to the Tragedy of Cinema podcast, the Twilight Zone Series. I'm your host, Jimbo, and once again, I'm joined by my great friend and co-host, Mr. ADZ, Eric Cummings. Eric, how you doing today?
ADZ is here, doing well, ready to launch off into this new episode. Glad that we've got some new equipment to help us along the way, and, we're always bettering ourselves, hopefully, and improving as we go along, and like you've said many times, maybe by the end of season 2 we'll be actual pros at this.
Right, and just so everybody knows, ADZ, he might be in the fifth dimension. He's up pretty early today because I have some plans here in a little bit, so he might be on the struggle bus today, but
definitely
here we go.
On the struggle bus today. Yeah.
This is episode number 27, The Big Tall Wish. Man, I got some stuff to say about this. I'll save it, but because I don't want to start just dissecting it at the moment. So let's go ahead and get started, Eric.
All right. The Big Tall Wish. This is the Twilight Zone episode number 27 of season 1, and it was directed by Ron Winston, and it was written by Rod Serling. And the featured music in this episode is by Jerry Goldsmith, with lots of harmonica solos, if you'll notice that in the music score of this particular episode. I believe it actually opens with a harmonica solo. So I like the music. I thought that was pretty cool. I always like the harmonica. The original air date was on April the 8th, 1960. And the total production cost for this particular episode was $43,453.40, which is...
Can I just say...
Yeah.
And it shows...
And it shows... What? You lost me.
The last couple we've done production values have been up in the 50,000s.
Yeah, that's what I was going to...
I can tell by the sets and all this, you can tell that they really went cheap here.
Oh, okay.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. I'm with you now. This is probably about close to 10 grand under what we've been seeing. But when we adjust that number for inflation, which is what we've been doing here lately, that number would be $384,007.68 for this particular episode when you adjust that in today's dollars. And I threw a little extra section in here. I found some tech specs for all you tech specs geeks out there for the actual episode. So the runtime is 25 minutes for this episode. The sound mix is mono. The color is black and white, of course, and the aspect ratio for this episode is 1.33 by 1, and the negative format is 35 millimeter. This is a 35 millimeter episode. The cinematographic process is spherical for this particular episode, and the printed format is 35 millimeter. So some similarities there with some of the movies that we do as far as the tech specs go, but a little different in the runtime, of course.
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
I have a question for you real quick. Did you happen to see in your resource about how much the actors got paid in this one?
I do. I didn't write any of that down, but yeah, it's in the resource material that I have. Some of the dollars.
Maybe you should look that up. I wonder if that's why the cost was so low. You know what I mean?
There was.
I'll go ahead and jump into the cast real quick.
Go
and
ahead.
start giving some stuff if you want to research that real quick, because I wanted to see because of the actors in this movie if they were paid less. If you understand what I'm saying,
Yep.
Which we'll get to here in a second. So. I'll go ahead and say this right now. Predominantly, this show is predominantly all African American actors. So we're going to go ahead and give the cast real quick. The lead person is Ivan Dixon. He plays Boley Jackson, who's a washed-up boxer, and you might recall him from the famous TV show Hogan's Heroes. He was also in Car Wash, where he played Lonnie. Then we have Stephen Perry as Henry Temple, who plays the little boy. He's most famous for the movie A Raisin in the Sun. Kim Hamilton, she plays Frances Temple, which is Henry's mom. She was known for Guiding Light, the soap opera drama, where she played Victoria Spalding. Walter Burke plays Joe Mazel. Charles Horvath as Joey Consiglio. And Carl McIntyre as the announcer. He played the announcers in a lot of stuff from TV shows to like The Fugitive, M Squad, and Canon 1. So, Eric, did you have time to find that?
I didn't find exact salaries for my info doesn't have that exact salaries for actors, but I do have a small paragraph that says this in the material that I have. It says this episode went into production at an estimated savings of $4,957, combining the above and below line estimates. It finished shooting on Thursday night right on budget hours as predicted. So it doesn't really go into the actual numbers.
But does it say why they saved that money?
No.
Just because they finished on time?
Apparently. It doesn't go into a whole lot of detail. I know some of the episodes from the book that I have, it gives actual numbers, but for this one, unfortunately, we don't have that information. It just says that number that they saved. Don't know. So,
all right.
Do you want me to go ahead and move along with the plot?
Yeah, move along.
The plot here in this particular episode is a tired old prize fighter named Boley Jackson wears a scrapbook on his face with each scar telling the story of past fights that Boley cares to forget. In an effort to redeem his good name, Boley sets out to fight the great Consiglio at Nicholas Arena. Boley's biggest fan is a little boy named Henry who, with a head full of dreams, intends to make a big tall wish so his idol will win the bout. Before entering the ring, Boley smashes 4 of his knuckles, a sure guarantee that he will go down before the 3rd round. Back at the apartment, young Henry watches the fight on television. When Boley gets knocked out, Henry grasps at the television screen and makes a big tall wish, which I thought that shot was pretty cool, though. To be honest,
where he's hugging the
TV in the backlight. I just thought that was kind of a neat little, shot there. I thought that was pretty cool. Call it fate or call it magic, Boley and Consiglio switch places. Everyone congratulates Boley for winning, but when he confronts young Henry, the boxer learns the truth. Henry made a wish, and it was granted. Boley, however, doesn't believe in magic and swears that he tells the kid that the world is made of cement, heartache, and scars. The boy cries, explaining that magic only happens if you believe in it. Since Boley swears that he cannot believe in magic, the prize fighters switch places in the ring and Boley is carried out. Returning to the apartment, the boxer confronts Henry to discover the boy is still proud of him, but the lad has decided to stop making wishes. He no longer believes in magic. Boley wonders if maybe the problem in this world... He wonders if maybe the problem in this world is there aren't enough people who believe. So that's probably the extended version of the plot. Are we ready to move through the points in the episode? Or Jimbo, did you have any other comments that you wanted to make here in the...
No, I'll save it. I'll save it for here in a little bit.
Okay. So we open the episode with some guys sleeping under a paper on the stoop. It looks like it's like in a major metropolitan area, and there's a headline talking about of the newspaper that talks about Boley Jackson, and then we come into what we come to find out is Boley's apartment upstairs. Which, let me just stop right here. This is just a minor thing that I noticed, that some of the resources that I looked up in the plot, it describes Boley as what's Henry's mother's name? Played by Kim Hamilton. Francis is her name. That he is Francis's boyfriend, but I don't think the episode, it doesn't really imply that, does it? To me, he has his own place upstairs in the same apartment building, and Henry is just, he idolizes Boley, and he's just visiting him, and he's more I would say a father figure or a mentor type guy to Henry.
It's one of those things where it's kind of like the friendly neighbor is what I get from it.
Yeah.
He pretty much he's a famous person that's known throughout the city or the especially his neighborhood, and I think since maybe they've been watching him since he came from that area, and that he reached the peak level, but he always kept time for his fans, I guess you would say, because later on in the episode you see him on the street and everybody's coming up to him and talking to him. So usually when somebody hits celebrity status, they forget where they came from. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And they get this big head, and I think that he was just down to earth, and he still was in the same neighborhood. He went back and lived there after he was washed up, done fighting or whatever. And I think he just became friends with all the people around him.
Yeah, I think so too.
But at no point did I think that him and Henry's mom were a thing.
Yeah, no, it doesn't.
I never got that feeling.
It doesn't really suggest that, either. So I just thought that was weird that some people wrote that in there. So Boley he's staring in the mirror. This mirror scene is actually kind of long, and he's describing all of the bouts that that he has had through his life, and he's describing his life as a prize fighter to Henry, and all of the scars and he remembers each scar and each fighter and where he fought, and he says that you can tell a lot about the path of a fighter because it's how does he describe it? He says it's like etched into his flesh, kind of describing all those scars, and he's excited. One other thing too, the actual fighter was actually supposed to be played by what was the boxer's name?
Archie Moore.
Yeah, Archie Moore, which Ivan Dixon, I believe, at this time was 28. So he's a little bit young. I guess he's right on the borderline of an over-the-hill fighter, really. But Archie Moore was, I guess, a lot older, and that he probably would have fit the mold a little bit better. But I guess he couldn't pull off some of the acting chops, and he didn't really have it, from what I understand. But Ivan Dixon, again, is pretty young, but I think he does all right as far as maybe if he was a little bit older, he would have been more believable as an older fighter, because you got guys like George Foreman and other guys. Even Mike Tyson just fought not too long ago. I mean, these guys are fighting well into their 40s and 50s. I know things are a little bit different today, but he is kind of young. But anyway, Boley describes, and I'll set this clip up here. He talks about he's an over-the-hill boxer, and he describes here, I'm going to run off some time here, and I'm going to insert a little clip talking about his, how he is, this bout really is kind of like his chance. And another thing I thought of too, it doesn't really tell us in the episode if Boley was a successful fighter in his early days, and now he's just trying to recapture that glory, or if he's just done this for a large portion of his life and he never was successful, and this is kind of like his last chance to get to the top of the heap, if you will, and before time passes him by. So I'm going to put this in right here.
Tired old man. is already gone. Left a couple of years ago. Arms heavy. Legs like rubber. Short of wind. One eye almost gone. There I go. Running down the street trying to catch that bus to glory.
Okay, so Boley has told us that what he thinks about his boxing career. He gives Henry some advice on life. Henry tells him, I'm gonna make a big tall wish for you, Boley, that you're not gonna get hurt. And so Boley grabs his bag and he goes downstairs after they have their conversation up in the apartment. He comes down the stairs and he meets Boley's mother, Frances, and she recounts to him a story about how, when Henry gets something in his mind, when he makes this big tall wish, and she describes like a story about receiving a $15 check or something because Henry makes this big tall wish, and sure enough, after he made the big tall wish, the money that they needed came in, and so Boley and Frances are having a nice conversation, and she wishes him good luck and so forth, and then sends Boley on his way to the arena, and she tells him that they're gonna be rooting for him. They're gonna be watching closely on television, which they do, and so we move from this scene, and Boley makes his way.
He's in the locker room or something, I believe.
Yeah, he makes his way. He makes his way down the stoop, and there's a scene on the street with people who are encouraging him, telling him to have a good fight, and so forth. And he makes one last glance to Henry, who waves to him in the window, and he gives him the old wave back. And then the next scene is we're in the locker room of the arena. And Jimbo, did you have anything in here that you wanted to
not yet. We're not yet. We're getting ready to talk about the fight here in a minute. But he has a conversation here with I guess it's the promoter and maybe his trainer.
Yeah.
Basically it's like all you gotta do is last 2 rounds. You last 2 rounds here, and so basically he's basically saying, look, I need you to last 2 rounds because I put money on you, basically. And he's like, remember, he's like, what's he say about?
Isn't he like a Don King? He kind of strikes me as like a Don King type promoter guy, but he's hedging his bet because he's betting on both fighters, and he's put $20 on the guy on Consiglio or whatever, and that kind of irritates. But you remember,
Boley. He's like, well, you got to give me some inside information, and he's like, no, I've never seen this guy fight. He's like, you're a liar because I've seen you fight several times in the past few months. Now, this angers Boley, and this is where he hurts his hand because he goes and he goes to punch the guy, and he punches the wall. Bam! And so you come to find out that he busted 4 knuckles, is what they call it. So you don't know if his hand's broke, if it's just bleeding. You don't really know. Maybe it's just bruised. You never know. But I guess to a boxer that would be a big deal.
Yeah, absolutely. So he's getting taped up by the trainer, and Jimbo's already come to that point. Where he punches the wall, and this promoter guy, I don't think his name's even given, like the promoter guy, he exits, and the trainer's like, oh man, this is bad news. Like, how is Boley now? He's already a quote unquote over the hill fighter, and now he's busted his knuckles. Like, there's like zero, if there was any chance, it was completely gone now that he's gotten upset and punched the wall over this betting scheme or whatever is going on. And so the trainer, he sits down and he does his best to put the glove. Well, one of the handlers comes in, and I guess in those days, like you only had one set of boxing gloves, and they just, interchange them out for fighters. So like the little handler guy throws the trainer the boxing gloves. And says something like, this bout is over, or on to the next bout, or you're up, or something like that. And Boley is in a lot of pain, and I'm no professional here, but it stuck out to me. This is just a little thing too. Like, I don't know anything about boxing really or the inner workings, but like the tape job on his hands, it looks like there's very little tape, that they wear for under the gloves. It was just like, man, this is not going to protect his hand at all as it looks.
Right.
And so anyway, that's just a little side note that doesn't really mean anything. But the trainer puts the gloves on, and Boley can barely put his hand in the glove. It hurts so bad. And then the next scene, which I thought was pretty unique in how they are describing the fight, or how the directors bring you into the fight. He's doing it with close-up shots of like emotion of people's hands in motion, or he'll do a close-up of the facial features of the people in the crowd. There wasn't like a wide pan shot of the crowd.
Do you know why?
No, please tell.
I'm getting ready to tell you. Here we go.
Ahead.
This is from my handy duty the Twilight Zone companion book, which I absolutely love.
Yeah.
So it says the director of The Big Tall Wish was Ron Winston, who also did the Monsters on Maple Street, if you remember. So he had some problems here that's different from Monsters on Maple Street. In Monsters on Maple Street, basically, you had a ton of people, a ton of cast, all set in a small setting.
Right.
He's like, but one of these problems that was shared by every television director who's ever had to stage a prize fight. How to give the feel of a crowded arena without being able to hire several hundred extras.
Mm-hmm.
He said to overcome this in The Big Tall Wish, the camera comes in close. We see the hands of the spectators as they react in various ways to the fight. One man eats popcorn, a woman peeks out from behind the spread fingers, a man's fist mimics the blows he sees flailing in the ring. Through these few shots, a composite impression is formed into a larger reality. Yeah. So by just looking at a select few and amplifying the crowd noise, you feel like you're in a big prize arena. Because if you look, the ring's lit up by lights, and then it's pretty dark on the outside, like a normal fight is.
Right. Yeah, I thought that was pretty well done, and that's some interesting facts about how the director, Ron Winston, pulled that off. And so we're in the ring, and these two, Consiglio and Boley, are slugging it out, and Henry's at home. And he's watching intently on TV. He's sort of crouched by his mother, and he's making all the jabs and the punches, like all of his kids did. Like, I know I did that when I watched Rocky, the movie. That was like one of my favorite boxing movies ever. But anyway, Boley gets knocked down, and the referee is standing over him, and everything stops, like time freezes. And why is that? Well, that's because when Boley went down, Henry is on the other side of that television screen, and we come to find out he is making the big tall wish. He is wishing and hoping that Boley would get switched with Consiglio, and then
what you got to remember though is that the ref was already at number 9. I mean, you only get a count of 10, and so he was wishing ever since he went down. But I mean, it was at the last second.
It was at you're right, the last possible second. Boley, all of a sudden, the time unfreezes, so to speak, and all of a sudden, Boley is standing up, being declared the winner, and Consiglio was the one that is on the mat getting the 10 count. And then the next scene after Boley, it's interesting too because Boley kind of has that. He's kind of confused when he's holding his hands up.
Looks like he's a few nuggets shy of a Happy Meal right there.
Yeah, he doesn't. He's confused. He doesn't know what's going on. And then the next scene is back in the locker room with the trainer, and Boley is like, maybe my hand wasn't broken after all. And the trainer kind of looks at him like, "What are you talking about? Like broken hand?" And then he was like, and the Boley made a comment like, "Man, I really thought I was out of it when I went down." And the trainer is just looking at him full of confusion. And it's just like, "What are you talking about, Boley? You never went off your feet the whole bout." So, again, there's just some confusion. And Boley's like, "Yeah, when he knocked me down, like I went out," and they go back and forth like this for a little while. And it's like everything that happened in the fight got reversed or erased. And so Boley just kind of, he lets it go. He doesn't quite understand, but he's like, "Hey, man, I won. Everybody's telling me I won. Like, I'm just going to go with this." He just kind of gradually, I guess, he is confused, but he accepts it. And then the next scene is he's out on the street and he's walking back home. And everybody's congratulating him and patting him on the back in the neighborhood. And they're like, "Man, you clobbered that guy. That was a great fight." And blah blah blah. And Bully's excited. And then the next scene we come to, it looks like the rooftop of maybe the apartment building. And then there's like a rabbit cage, and Henry is feeding. It looks like he's got some pet rabbits. And Henry comes over and congratulates Bully and says, "Man, you were like a tiger out there, Bully." And and Bully's like, "Yeah, man, that guy must have hit me 50 times. I don't remember a doggone thing. Like I was fighting back, but he's still kind of trying to shake off the confusion of what happened." And then we come to find out that Henry is. Bully says, "Man, this must have been like some kind of dream or something, because, just trying to shake that off." And then Henry kind of like drops his head and goes back to the rabbit cage and says, "Bully, I made the big tall wish. Like, when you were off your feet, like I wished harder than ever that, you would be the one, being the champion, and that Consiglio, that you guys would basically switch places." And then Bully's like distressed at this point. He says, "Man, I was on my way out," and like, kind of like he's having trouble reconciling because Henry just, he believes so strongly in magic, and he talks a lot about the magic of the tall wish, and then Bully is trying to explain to this young boy like there's no such thing as magic. Wait till you get your face beat down in the world and it gets rubbed into the cement. He makes a comment similar to something like that. And he's like, "I'm too old to believe in magic. I'm too old to believe this. I can't, my days are gone for believing in miracles and things like that." And he tells Henry, like, "You're nutsy to think about believing in magic," and so on and so forth. And then we come to the end of this scene. It's a really impassionate scene where Bully is kneeled down and he's trying to explain all these things that I just talked to you about. And then we enter, I think this is the part, Jimbo, if I'm not mistaken, we go right back into the ring after this. I'm forgetting how we transition from this scene.
I think Henry runs away from him or whatever, and Bully looks up at a light or something. Remember?
Yeah, transitions. You're exactly right. Bully gives him a big hug, and Henry is crying because he's just crushed that his idol,
hero,
doesn't believe the same way that he does, which is understandable. And then you're exactly right. The camera pans to a light, and then we go from that. I couldn't remember the transition point, and we re-enter the ring. And then we see some of those tight shots again of the people in the crowd. And then down on the mat is Bully instead of Consiglio. And Bully is the one that's counted out. And which I don't know if you have this in your notes too. I guess just another from the cinematographic arena. I guess they shot those shots through a glass or something. The camera was under like a piece of glass to shoot those scenes where... I thought that was kind of a cool. I don't know how revolutionary it was at the time, but the camera pointing up and you get the viewpoint from under. It almost looks like a viewpoint from underneath the ring. I thought that was kind of interesting. But Bully is the loser, in fact, because of his lack of ability to believe in magic or wish, and then he's making that same stroll back through the neighborhood after the fight, and instead of getting all those congratulatory handshakes and pats on the back, there's really no one save one person in the neighborhood, and everybody's inside, and the reality sets in of what happened, and he's got big bandages on his eye now, and he's got bandages on his hand where the broken knuckles from before. And he goes to the apartment, and Frances greets him at the door, and she says, Henry's in bed, and Bully asks, "Heck, well, can I go talk to him?" And she says, "Sure," and he goes into Henry's room, and to his surprise, Henry is not really devastated, like he thinks, and Henry's still proud of him that he fought a good fight, and But he's come to this conclusion that he's just too old to believe in wishes or to believe in magic anymore. And, that's kind of the conclusion. I've sped it up a little bit, but the conversation does go on for a minute.
He basically tells him, like, hey, tomorrow we'll go get hot dogs and ice cream in the park or something, and it's just like another day, you know what I mean? And then it pretty much ends right there.
Yeah, and then the episode pretty much ends with Rod's narration.
Right. It was pretty lackluster to me, the whole episode pretty much. So let's talk a little bit about this stuff. I'll go through some of these notes real quick before we dive into some of the deeper stuff that we're going to talk about. After airing this episode with its nearly all-black cast, revolutionary for American television at the time, The Twilight Zone was awarded the 1961 Unity Award for Outstanding Contributions to Better Race Relations. And I think a lot of that goes towards Rod Serling and his vision.
Absolutely.
But I got a quote here in a little bit we're going to talk about, and it's really eye-opening. Ivan Dixon would go on to portray Sergeant Kinklo on the popular World War II POW series Hogan's Heroes. Get this, in 1997, Kim Hamilton, who played Henry's mom, as Frances, married Werner Klemperer. You know who he was? He played Colonel Klink on Hogan's Heroes. I thought that was pretty cool.
I saw that in my reading as well, and he was like 12 to 15 years her senior, too.
I thought he was old in Hogan's Heroes.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, he was a lot older than her, too, yeah.
Walter Burke, who plays Ivan Dixon's trainer, and Charles Horvath, who plays Dixon's opponent in the ring, reunited 7 months later for an episode of Lawman in 1958 titled Lawman, Samson the Great in 1960. Curiously, this episode also involved a boxing match with series star John Russell fighting to win a bare-knuckled brawl. Ivan Dixon and Stephen Perry, which is Henry and Boley, would act together again in the 1961 motion picture A Raisin in the Sun. So I might have to check that out. I heard good things about it. Ivan Dixon and Walter Burke worked again on the first season episode of the Hogan's Heroes called The Safe Cracker Suite. Dixon was regular on the series while Burke made a guest appearance. Let's see that I need to read that. That's the quote I got for later.
I got something about Archie Moore here, going back to him. It says, originally cast in the lead role, we talked about him earlier, was champion boxer Archie Moore, who later exclaimed, "Man, I was in the Twilight Zone," when describing the punch delivered by his opponent, Yvonne Durrell, in an actual, I guess, boxing match. I thought that was kind of funny. And the boxing match takes place in St. Nick's Arena, which was the name of the boxing arena in New York City, St. Nicholas Rink. So apparently that was an actual place in New York City.
Right. This is also one of the several episodes from season 1 where some broadcast prints have the opening title sequence replaced with that of season 2. This was done during the summer of 1961 to help the season 1 show fit in with the new look of the show that had been taken with for the following season. This is a few of the other Twilight Zones following an example of this episode and cast black actors in significant roles, including the pastor in I Am the Night, Color Me Black, with Ivan Dixon, a child in the mall in The Night of the Meek, and the electrician in the Brain Center at Whipple's. These inclusions, though seemingly insignificant by modern standards, were so revolutionary at the time that the Twilight Zone, like I said, was awarded the Unity Award for Outstanding Contributions for Better Race Relations in 1961. And also, let's see here, where was it? The hallway shown in this episode is also used in Mr. Beavis, which we'll be coming up to here before the end of season 1.
I thought you were going to say Forbidden Planet, and I was like, not again.
No, but slightly altered, however. The door and the stair railings remain the same. So I'm going to read this quote by Serling out of my trusty Twilight Zone companion book, just so you can see what his thoughts were. And then, Eric, I think you have something that we discussed, an allegory basically between the ring and Mr. Dixon.
Yeah, I just got some questions and observations that we'll get to kind of at the end of the episode when we talk about our collective thoughts on it. Yeah,
so here's another little paragraph from my trusty duty companion book. The theme of the Big Tall Wish was nothing new, being simply a reiteration of the old saw about the washed-up fighter and the adorable little boy the Lugs just got to win the big fight for. But Serling had a couple of twists in mind. For one, The central drama of the piece revolved around a belief in magic. For another, both the fighter and the little boy, along with the boy's mother and all the people in the neighborhood, were played by black actors. In 1916, casting blacks in a dramatic show not dealing with racial issues was something practically unheard of, but this was a deliberate move on Serling's part. And here is Rod Serling's quote, and then I want your opinion on it, Eric. He says, and I quote, "Television, like its big sister, the motion picture, has been guilty of a sin of omission," he said at the time. "Hungry for talent, desperate for the so-called new face, constantly searching for a transfusion of new blood, it has overlooked a source of wondrous talent that resides under its nose. This is the Negro actor." End quote. Now, I really like this quote. Now he uses that word there. I'm not a big fan of that word, just so everybody knows. But I didn't want to misquote Serling there. But at the time, Serling's like, look, he's like, you guys have actors, you have great people, you have wondrous talent right here, right under your nose, but you guys are so caught up in skin color that you won't give them a chance. And I really, really like his quote. He's like, look, he's pointed out to him. He's like, look, you guys don't understand. He's like, you got wonderful people right here, but yet you won't do anything about it.
Yeah, he definitely was a beacon for change in the show business industry. And, you know, it's, if you read anything about his biography, anything about his life, he was always fighting for the little man, so to speak, fighting for the person who was left out or excluded.
Equality is what he was fighting.
Equality, exactly. And so, that's obvious. Just taking a cursory glance at Rod Serling, he really, if he believed in something, he was going to fight for it. And it was obvious that, you know, he was kind of revolutionary in the time and space in American culture where we were in the 1960s. And yeah, he was like a trailblazer for that. And so, yeah.
And what I like about Serling, and what I like about him too, is like his producers and directors are like, hey, you got to cut some of this stuff out. And he's like, no, it's stayed in, or he'll say okay, and then he'll do it anyway. You know?
Yeah. One other piece of trivia that relates to Serling from the boxing angle: Serling's interest in boxing dates back to his childhood in upstate New York and memories of a fading Jack Dempsey training for a comeback at Saratoga Lake. The same day Rod Serling graduated from high school, he enlisted in the U.S. Army 11th Airborne Division as a paratrooper. During basic training, he took up boxing. Fighting in then the catchweight division, he enjoyed a 17-bout winning streak. In the 18th fight, a professional boxer was brought in who broke his nose in 2 places and sent him to defeat in the 3rd round and thoroughly convinced him to give up boxing. His personal misadventure didn't dull his taste for the sport. One fighter dwarfed all others in Serling's memory. That was Joe Louis, whom the playwright regarded as the greatest fighter, pound for pound, who ever lived. While recognizing the sport's evils, Serling refused to subject his audiences to pedantic moralizing on its shortcomings. Instead, he saw its finer side. A good fighter is a piece of art, Serling once commented. So, fighting and boxing was near and dear to his heart, as well as the other issues that went into this episode. It seems like they were passions of his, the boxing and civil rights, if you will. He kind of combined those 2 issues and put them in this episode, and we got an episode of the Twilight Zone out of it. So, pretty good stuff there about Rod Serling. Anything in closing? Do you want me to go ahead and ask what was your overall take of the episode?
No, because I got a couple of things that we're going to talk about for you.
Okay.
For we talked about this yesterday when we did our little trial.
Okay.
For one, why don't you give the audience your feelings on the difference between a wish, a magic, and a miracle? Because they all are mentioned in this episode. Yeah,
that was one of my. If I had a criticism, I think, just speaking, I think I like the episode probably more than you. I think the rating, if the rating is a 6.7 on IMDb, I thought it was very fitting. I don't think it ranks near the top of, we do this for every episode. I don't think it ranked near the top in season 1. I think it's probably in the bottom half, and maybe even a little bit lower than that. But the 6.7 rating I think is fair. One of my criticisms, though, that I didn't like is how the episode uses the words wish, magic, and miracle interchangeably, when I believe they are in fact defined very differently. A miracle, for instance, has nothing to do with the other two, meaning wish or magic, but in fact is a supernatural act by the divine. Magic is no more than a sleight of hand or an illusion. So, I just think there needed to be a distinction there, because Rod Serling in the closing narration uses a miracle, and wish and magic are used throughout the episode, and they're used as interchangeable terms. And I just wanted to point that out, that they are defined differently, in my opinion.
Right, you can't just keep interchanging them like that.
You can't lump them all together.
They're not the same thing.
Yeah,
right?
You can't lump them all together. That was
now the other thing I'd like to talk about for a second is I thought you came up with a really good allegory yesterday that you threw at me, and I was kind of like, whoa, because I didn't even think about it. So why don't you go ahead and give the audience what you presented to me yesterday, which I thought was really interesting.
Yeah, and I may be digging too deep here and overthinking. It may be reaching on my part, but just at the time and place and the culture and history, the thing that Rod Serling did, though, he didn't throw the fact that the actors were all African American. He didn't. You saw that on the screen, but there were no hints about racism or equality or civil rights throughout the story. It wasn't in the dialogue or anything in the storyline leading up. It was very subtle, but I did kind of dig this out, and it's just a question that I have, and the question is this: is it possible that the boxing ring in this episode is a metaphor for civil rights and equality, and that Boley is just too old and beaten down by the scars of life to believe that change will ever come in his lifetime? And Henry, on the other hand, is young and he's very hopeful, and he believes that the changes are possible and that they will come. In the old Sam Cooke song, "Change is going to come" by old Sam Cooke, 1960s R&B singer. So that was just something that I threw out there that that I thought about, and if you wouldn't catch it. It's really, really subtle, but just the way the dialogue reads kind of got my mind going down that track, and I just kind of wondered.
Right, and you got me thinking too, because the scars on that Boley has that are visible on his face, maybe deeper than that. It may just not be scars on his face, but scars that have happened in his life,
right?
Not from fighting, but for fighting, but not for physically fighting, just because of where we were in society at that time. And then he's hoping for a day that things will change, but you'll never forget. And then you have young Henry, who's never had any experience with that. He's a kid.
Exactly.
Everything's fine and dandy to him. You know what I mean? So.
Yeah, just one other quote here by the Twilight Zone companion, which you're holding right now. Mark Scott Zickery writes this: "The subject of race is never thrust upon the audience in this episode. I think Serling wanted the story to stand on its own, and I respect him for that. However, it most definitely bears mentioning, especially when you consider the context of the time and place in America. And you talked about this earlier, Jimbo, that the all-black principal cast was a novelty for television in 1960. And I thought that, that's definitely worth considering. And it was a novelty at the time, but I may be digging a little bit too deep with the whole metaphor of the boxing ring and stuff.
No, that was pretty good, because that never even crossed my mind. Hey, you know what? It may have not crossed Serling's mind either, but
we don't know.
But I think you can actually draw that conclusion from it easily.
Yeah, we joke the other day, like, man, I wish we could sit down and interview him and ask him that, and ask him about this one, awesome. And ask him about plenty of the other episodes. Like, were you thinking about Oda Benga when you wrote?
People are like it.
Yeah, people are like all over that episode. That'd be something. That'd be really cool to sit down and pick his brain and ask him these things.
All right, Eric. So it's time. Give me your thoughts on this. Give me your thoughts on this. Give me your thoughts on this episode.
I really think. Yeah, I stated earlier. I think it's right where it needs to be. I don't think it was one of the best, but again, like, it's a Twilight Zone, and I love the Twilight Zone. The rating, I think, is right where it needs to be. Wasn't in the top 10 for sure. The story is, it's an old classic story of the washed up boxer trying to make a comeback. And I love boxing movies like Rocky. All the Rocky movies are like one of my favorites. And so I like that in cinema or in TV. Raging Bull was one, and then there was one with there was one that I liked as a kid. I forget the Ricky Schroeder and his dad's like a boxer. That's a really offbeat movie. Like that's probably a B-rated movie that I really liked as a kid. And I thought
you go way down there.
Yeah, I can't remember the title slips my mind now, but I know Ricky Schroeder was in it as he was like 7 or 8. I might have been like his acting debut, but anyway, I digress. I thought this was I probably liked it a little bit better than you. I didn't think it was terrible, but it wasn't in my top 10. But it was good.
Right. For me, I loved Ivan Dixon's portrayal. You told me he was only 28 when they did this. I believed he was probably much older.
Yeah.
By the way, and I think the little Henry, I think he played an excellent role. But with little kids, they only give them pretty much a couple lines that are repeated. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Please, you got to get up, Mr. Bully. Please, you got to get up.
Some of that was a little bit sappy and kind of over.
Right.
But I mean, as a kid, like I thought he did okay.
But then, like I was telling you, like the props for the set, and I don't know if that was on purpose. Make it look, like downtrodden, slummy, whatever you want to say, the bad side of town. I mean, I wish they would have put more into it. Maybe, I mean, I don't know what it's missing for me, but I mean, the acting was good. I just think the story was weak. I don't think this is, to me, there wasn't that big Twilight Zone twist. You can make the statement that Bully never really actually had all the rest, the victory and all that he was knocked unconscious and then he just came back too. So to me, there wasn't that big Twilight Zone twist that we're so used to seeing, or the reveal or something like that. Yeah, he was the other guy in the ring. Okay, we get it. But to me, this is probably in the bottom 3 of season 1. And it's not because of the acting. It's just the story, I think, to me, just did it in for me. I mean, I'm not a big boxing fan anyway. So, I mean, now if it's WWE, then we're talking. Boxing, not so much. But I do appreciate Serling for what he did for all the actors and everything. So, I think that's good. But other than that,
Yeah.
Now, I do like, I do like, one thing that I didn't know if you caught on to was, Bowley. Okay, think about this, Bowley. You change a couple of letters around, and it could be Bolieve. You know what I mean? So, I'm just saying. I mean, seriously. Bolieve. I thought that was pretty cool. So, that's my take on it. You guys can write in and tell me if I'm wrong, if I'm right, if Eric's right. If we're both wrong, it's the greatest of all time, like Muhammad Ali. This episode flew like a butterfly, then stung like a bee.
Yeah.
But with that being said, I think this episode's coming to a close, and that's a wrap.
And cut.
Mr. Boldy Jackson, 183 pounds, who left a second chance lying in a heap on a rosin-spattered canvas at St. Nick's Arena. Mr. Boldy Jackson, who shares the most common ailment of all men, the strange and perverse disinclination to believe in a miracle. The kind of miracle to come from the mind of a little boy, perhaps only to be found in the Twilight Zone.